So
Nice.
there we go. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So exciting that we have Nikki Castle, one of my faves, on. We have, hey, Monica. Hey, Lizelle. Hey, Chantel. So many people. Hello,
nice.
hello.
See, like comments as it's. I've never done anything with YouTube before, so this is like fun for me.
You're my first author interview on my channel, so.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. So, I'm going to take a page out of Jess's book. She's done a lot of author interviews on her channel. But we can go around and say our favorite book by you. I know your backlist isn't super extensive because you're like a newly published author, but in the comments, you can let us know what your favorite book is. She does have a novella that just released. So if you've read it, you can drop that if that's your favorite too. So you can go ahead, Jess.
My favorite is 5 Rounds. I really, really love that one. I know I'm not going to spoil Tori's favorite, but I read both of them now. I just finished 2 Fights Today, but I think Tristan just holds a very special place in my heart. So he is definitely my favorite. And I just love the enemies to lovers, roommates, and the fighting. It's just everything I loved about it.
Mine is 2 Fights.
Mm-hmm.
I have such a soft spot for friends to lovers. And then Haley's story is just one of my favorites. So, like, don't get me wrong. I love a good enemies to lovers, but friends to lovers always tops it for me. So that's definitely my favorite. Someone also said 2 Fights.
That does seem to be like the main deciding factor between like which book people like. Cause like Tristan is such a enemies to lovers type MMC and Jax is a very friends to lovers type MMC. Like he's like the nice guy, you know, while still being filthy. So, I mean, they're both filthy, but it's a matter of like, would you like the asshole or the nice guy? That's really it, you know? So I totally get it.
Do you have, out of the 2 like full-length novels, do you have a favorite that was like your favorite writing?
So the funny thing is when I get that question, I always think of the book that I'm most proud of. Like my favorite book was 2 Fights. And I feel like that will always be like my latest novel. Like that's the one that I'll be like the most proud of. And, you know, that's just going to be my go-to. But as far as like characters, it's always going to be Tristan and Remy. Even if I think about like what I have planned for the rest of that entire series and the characters that I have planned, it's probably still always going to be Tristan. So it just depends on if I'm looking at the book, then it's 2 Fights. If I'm looking at, you know, the characters, then it's Remy and Tristan.
They are.
But I do like Jax. Jax is special.
He's a softie.
So Lizelle asked how many books are going to be in the Fight Game series.
So I have 6 planned. Potentially 7. We'll see. I still have 1 character that's like I'm waiting for their story to like come to me. But my goal is to give every fighter a story, as well as there's going to be 1 new character introduced in the next book that is kind of like the token fighter that no one ever really thinks about, that I just haven't introduced yet. So yeah, this is what I kind of envision this being like an ongoing series, and clearly I'm publishing other things during it. So it's not going to be like I write 3 in a row and then it's done. So I have at least 6 planned and I'm very excited for every single one of them.
I know you've teased a little bit about Aiden. Is his story next in the series? Okay.
Yeah. So book 3 in the series will release in November. I think I only put that in writing. Actually, in the novella, I made a comment at the very end of it. Aiden and Danny. And what I like to do is I always like to introduce the characters in the most recent book. So like Danny was introduced in 2 Fights. And Aiden and Danny, they're going to be like my really fun, really sexy couple. It is probably going to be spicier than 5 Rounds, which is like, it's probably the spiciest book I'll ever write. but Aiden, he's just like a charmer. He's fun. You know what I mean? And Danny's just like the cool chick, you know? So they've been so fun to write. And I've been writing them while I was writing the novella. Like the novella was like a side project.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're next. And I'm very much looking forward to releasing them.
Oh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I love it.
You introduced them really well as characters that had a lot of good chemistry in Two Fights. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think I always want to do that. That seems to do well both like in the book and from like a marketing standpoint too, is like you introduce the next couple and kind of get just a very basic feel for who they are. So it'll be the same thing in every book. So like in Aiden's book, you'll meet the next couple too, you know? So, but I like Danny. Danny's cool. Danny was fun to write into that book.
Are you like done writing? Like, or are you still like halfway through? You have like quarter of the way left, or?
I'm probably maybe a third of the way through right now. Damien and Annie took up a little bit more of my time than I anticipated. Who I did not, maybe I should have, but I didn't really guess that a novella would be harder to write than a 400-page novel. But that's one of the reasons why I did it. For me, it was kind of a half a writing exercise, half a like these characters rolling around in my head that I wanted to put down. But yeah, I was writing them kind of in sync. And it was actually interesting. I thought it would be hard to write 2 books at the same time, but because they're in totally different worlds, it was actually way easier to separate than I thought they would be. So, and plus, you know, Aiden and Danny have been in my head since I wrote Two Fights last year. So they already had like a fleshed out character set, you know? So yeah, they're my summer project, basically. I'm going to finish them this summer and then we'll launch this fall.
That's exciting. Are you like a plotter or you just go with the flow when you're writing?
Oh, I'm a plotter. Yeah. I always joke that I don't write chronologically, and I'm like very impressed with authors that can, because I am a mood reader, which means I am also a mood writer. I don't know if that's a thing, but I think that's what I am. So like if I'm feeling angry and I want to write, you know, the third act breakup or whatever it is, not saying there's a third act breakup in any book, but you know, if I'm not in the mood to write a spicy scene, then I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to do another one. So what that means is I have to stay very controlled with an outline. Yeah. So before I do anything, I write a fairly detailed outline, and then I can jump in and I can write any scene. And for me, actually the hardest part of writing is like tying it all together with just like the one page here and one page there that connects from one scene to the next kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know what would happen if I ever just started writing. Maybe one day we'll find out. I don't know. I'm still developing as a writer, but yeah, for now, a very detailed outline keeps me controlled, and then I write whatever I'm in the mood for.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
How long does that take you then, the outlining process?
The outline, I probably that rolls around in my head for like a solid maybe 2-3 weeks. Like that has to I have to have a vision of the story. I might write a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I take the most time. Actually, that's not true, but I take a good amount of time to actually write a good outline. And then I think novels for me, especially like I have a day job, you know, I have other things going on too. So right now the timeline for me to write a book is about 3 months. So, and that's for a novel, obviously. So, you know, I'm kind of a slow writer, but it's what feels right, you know, for these. But I do take a good amount of time for the outline itself. So
3 months is still really impressive though, with a full-time job. So I don't know.
Well, I'd say I also take 3 months to edit, because editing is, I mean, I'm huge on editing. There's, especially in the indie world, there's a very different view on editing for every author. For me, I hire an editor for content development. So not only do we look at, I mean, sentence, I feel like most people, like the most common type of editing is just sentence structure and just making sure that like the writing flows. I look at plot holes. So I spend a lot of time with beta readers, and content editing. And so it cracks me up that it actually takes me just as long to edit a book as it does to write a book. But that's just me. That's a personal thing. But my rough drafts are very rough. and then I, spend some time ironing it out. So
So you have like a team backing you basically.
Oh yeah, my books would be, I always joke that the rough drafts that my betas get are like, they're so different. Like I always have them reread it before they even leave a review, because I'm like, it's not the same book that it was 6 weeks ago. It's really not.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me personally, it changes a lot. And that's one of the reasons why it takes me, I mean, it's been 5 months since I published 2 fights, and it was a 100-page novella. You know what I mean? So it just, for me, and I did content editing on even the novella too. So yeah, editing is big for me,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like honestly, when I first found out that 5 Rounds was your first published book, I was blown away, because usually with new writers, like newly published writers, you can tell the flaws. Or if you read their first book and you go to their 5th book, you can tell as an author, obviously, they've grown with writing. And when I read 5 Rounds, I was like, this is bananas that this is her first like published book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's so funny because looking back at 5 Rounds, like even when I didn't have any beta readers for that book. I had an editor who I spent about 2 months with, and it was like the first time, and we went through and we changed a lot of things. But it's funny, like looking back, and I look at reviews. I don't know if I'm a glutton for punishment, but I look at all the bad stuff that people say about 5 Rounds. Not so much anymore, because now it's just kind of repetitive. But for the most part, everything that people say, there's like a part of me where I'm like, all right, I kind of get it. So I would change so much about 5 Rounds if I could. Like, I think for me, I would cut certain things. Like for me, I don't know that I would make it as long as it was. Like, I think I would just consolidate. And that was actually one of the reasons why I wrote a novella. It was partly a writing exercise for me, was like, can I tell a story in 100 pages? So I love hearing the love for 5 Rounds, and 5 Rounds is by far my bestseller. And I think it has to do with like the enemies to lovers category, I think 2 Fights for me feels like I'm way more proud of that book. That was like a much more difficult book to write. But because it's friends to lovers, it kind of falls into a different category. But yeah, I mean, hearing, when I published 5 Rounds and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a debut, like that's like the biggest compliment you can get. You know what I mean? So, but it's weird to see like how far I feel like I've already come. And so 5 Rounds published in July last year. So my 1-year anniversary is coming up next month. So, which is like totally surreal. Totally.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know it was published. I think I read it at the end of the last year or the beginning of this year. No, it was the beginning of this year, because I just did like my 5-star reads and both were in there. And I just like blows my mind that I just discovered these books, and I'm like, I love every aspect of both of them.
They're very different, that's for sure. 5 Rounds didn't really take off until about October last year. Fit Teacher Rachel found me, and that kind of helped everything take off. But
yeah, on TikTok, since they're becoming so popular, someone asked, will they be released on audio?
Yes. So I am a total audio snob. So between that, and I don't know if people know that audiobooks are very expensive to make. Yes. So they're actually difficult for indie authors. And so for me, I was kind of waiting to see like how 2 Fights did. And if I was going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I've got a couple pet peeves with audiobooks. So I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. Yeah, that's my goal. So this summer I've got 2 goals. One is to kind of look into what it would take to do audiobooks. And I might do the novella first, just to get a feel for what it's like to even do an audiobook. And then launch into the fight game series. But either way, this year I will definitely launch audiobooks for probably all 3. And then I want to do discrete covers for the fight game series too. I get a lot of requests for that too. So those are kind of the 2 like extra projects that I get messaged about all the time that I'm like, I should really, I should do both of those things. So yes, audiobooks are coming.
Yeah, I've heard a lot from especially indie authors that trying to do audios yourself, even if they say it's like through Audible, it's still expensive because you have to basically put all of the like everything up front.
Yeah.
Do you have any narrators in mind?
No, that's the other thing is like I don't listen to audiobooks, so I think I'm probably going to have to like find people to like lean on when I do that. And I've had a few companies reach out to me, like send me emails and say, does anyone have audio rights to this book? But it's kind of daunting, you know what I mean? Like, because I don't listen to audiobooks, and personally, so my pet peeve with romance audiobooks is every time I listen to an audiobook, I know that they have dual narration, right? So they've got a male narrator reading the male chapter, female reading the female. But I personally don't like it when the male narrator reads the female lines during a sex scene. It takes me out of it completely. So it was to the point that I was at a book convention last year. I was at Indies Invade Philly, which is a fairly big or they get a good amount of authors, and they got all the narrators. Like Shane East was there, Emma Wilder was there. Like there were like a whole table, and I got everybody standing up by the end of it. And I was like, somebody explain to me why we don't have like the females reading the female lines and like the males reading the male lines. And they basically said like, look, it's twice as expensive because you have two narrators sitting in front of each other. So you're paying both of them double, right? Because they're sitting there, and you do get better chemistry. So that's the other thing, is because they're kind of feeding off of each other, and they all know each other. They're best friends. So you do get a better audiobook off of it, but basically it's twice as expensive. So I think if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it like that. Just because, and again, this is a personal pet peeve. But I also don't know how much those narrators charge versus some of the smaller ones. So my PA has a lot of research to do this summer.
I do know, I don't know how many that you've listened to, but I know JT Geisinger, her Queens and Monsters series. I'm pretty sure someone was talking in a live show about it, that the female, even though it was from the male's point of view chapter, the female read the like female lines, like her quotes and stuff.
Gotcha.
So I do know, I remember someone talking about that. I don't remember what live show. Jess, do you remember that?
I remember that conversation, but I don't remember where it was.
Yeah.
But it was JT Geisinger's
I think
work?
It was her Queens and Monsters, because I've listened to a couple of her of that series, because there's 4 books. It's a mafia romance. And I remember thinking, this is different, because usually I'm in the male point of view and it's only supposed to be the male, but it switched to the female, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
I just read Blindsided by Amy Dawes, and it did that. So it's not like super common for that to happen, but I do know, I mean, because it's so expensive, because it's more work on the narrator's part. But yeah, it was cool because like he would be thinking and then her voice would come in, and
it just it takes me out of it. But the narrators, they were saying that what's his name, Teddy Hamilton, I think he was the one that was saying, he's like, we're gonna start seeing it more and more, like it's just now getting more popular. So I kind of want to like, get ahead of the wave a little bit. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. So I think we're going to start to see more of them. But those two, I'm making notes here while you guys are talking.
No, you're good. I also feel like for the both female and male characters of just the 2 books that you have, I feel like in my head they have such distinct accents. And I'm like, ooh, what if I listen to the audio and it doesn't no one can do a Philly accent the way someone from Philly can? Like, what am I going to do?
That's daunting too. I feel like as an author, I spend so much time building up my characters and the voices of my characters that audiobook is like a whole other level of that. So the last thing I want to do is pick someone that doesn't do him justice. Maybe I just do crazy auditions.
I was gonna say, I think that narrators will send in clips of themselves reading a part of the book so that before you hire them. I've heard that too. Yeah, both me and Jess, we both listen to a lot of audiobooks, but there's a lot of people.
Yeah,
Monica, I'm gonna call you too.
I love Teddy Hamilton, so his voice is so good.
I love Shane East. I
Yeah,
love
he's great.
Andy Arndt. She's amazing.
She's
I met
awesome,
her in
yeah.
Nashville. Yeah.
If I could get I like Shane East, I like Teddy Hamilton. Again, I haven't listened to too many, so part of this is my ignorance, but Emma Wilder is like by far my favorite female voice to listen to. So like my dream would be to get her. I don't know how much she costs. I gotta call her up, but
sometimes I forget
until I hear their voice.
Yeah. So I have to look up to see. Oh, she did the Jessica Hawkins, the White Monarch trilogy.
Oh.
Because I listened to that one just recently this year.
She does a lot of I feel like I have a lot of Lauren Blakely on my phone. And this is me, like I prefer reading. So again, it just comes back to I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks because I just don't take in the story the same way when I'm listening to it. So a lot of time, like when I'm listening to an audiobook, it's like they're my fun reads. So she does a lot of Lauren Blakely stuff with both Teddy Hamilton. I think Shane East are on a lot of them too, but I think she's got like the sexiest female voice. So
did you listen to Under One Roof by Elia Hazelwood? Mm-hmm. It's Emma Wilder. That's her.
Oh, okay.
Her voice. She did a Jodi Ellen Malpass book. She's done a lot. She has like 14 pages. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming out with all of the
Sebastian York's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, Sebastian York.
Nathan Clark, Jordan. Okay.
Yeah, we got you.
Nice.
We can send you all
these. I assume these comments save on the YouTube video when you post it.
I think it does.
Well, you'll be able to see them on the screen too.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. It really is like casting a movie for a book. That's a daunting question too.
Yeah. Yeah. The only full like narration ones I've listened to, I do know Sarah J. Maas. She just came out with the
graphic audio.
Where it's like full narration for like everything fantasy. But Kennedy Ryan did Real, and that was like basically full cast. She had someone singing in the audiobook along with like the two male and female. It was audio is like getting crazy now.
Oh yeah, it's getting huge. I get requests like multiple times a week asking if I'm gonna do an audiobook. So yeah, it's people definitely.
Monica said I can email it to you.
All right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a lot. Someone did ask, what's your vision? I know you mentioned discrete covers. Do you have a vision in mind? Anything?
Kind of. So the novella that I released this week was the first time that I didn't do a sexy cover. And for me, the reason why I do sexy covers for the Fight Game series is because I feel like my books are so spicy that I have this like inherent fear that someone's going to pick it up without knowing like how spicy it is. And then they're just going to be shocked and leave me bad reviews about it being written porn. So this was like my first time playing around with a discrete cover, and I absolutely love the cover that came out and the company that I worked with. So it's called Books and Moods, and they're incredible. So I'm gonna hire them this summer to figure out, you know, what we can do for. I'm gonna release both and have both 5 rounds and 2 fights, and do a discrete cover. I'll probably keep it simple. It'll probably be kind of like the theme of the book. Like I feel like for 5 rounds, it's 2 fighters. It's basically just fighting. You know, for 2 fights, I make a lot of Queen references, a lot of, you know, Crown references. And I've got a vision for, you know, the 3rd book as well. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it kind of simple, but discrete covers do seem to be the big thing right now. And so I think I'm gonna do like alternate covers for the Fight Game series going forward.
Along with the original covers, you mean?
Yeah. The original covers I'm gonna stick with because I absolutely love doing that. And yeah, those are super fun to do.
Yeah, I love the sexy covers. They're some of my favorites.
I do too. I have a lot of fun picking like the models and the pictures too. And I also found out, I don't know how much you guys like look at my Instagram, but there's a guy on TikTok who embodies Aiden for me. So occasionally I will show like I'll share his TikTok videos, and he apparently just started modeling for romance covers. So I might try out. I don't know. We got to see if it'll work out. But I think that would be super cool to like get him on a cover.
That would be really cool.
But even that's expensive too. Anytime you have a romance cover that you hired a model and a photographer and a space for, that's like thousands of dollars. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So, but covers will literally sell a book. So
did you have a model like ask you about the Novella cover?
Yeah, somebody tagged me in a Damien lookalike on TikTok, and I guess Book Talk found the guy, and somebody tagged him, or somebody tagged me in his account, and as a joke, I left a comment, and I was like, "Oh, I'm publishing a novel or a novella next week, and the main character looks like you. I would love to send you a copy." And English is a second language for him, so I don't think he really understood. But so he interpreted that, like me sending him a copy, as, "Oh, I would love to get into modeling for romance covers." So it just kind of escalated. So who knows? We might do an alternate cover for the novella as well and get Damien.
With this guy.
That's awesome.
It's escalated.
That's so funny.
TikTok can blow anything up. Like literally anything, they can make it happen. And they will search, like people on TikTok can search everything and find like the one person. Is it the one for Damien with the man bun, right? He has the long hair on TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've seen him. Yeah, he popped up.
Yeah, he's I don't like picking like celebrity face claims, because occasionally I'll get like, who do I think of as Tristan or Jax, or and occasionally I'll pick like an actor. Like there's Matthew Noska is like the guy that I think of for Jax. And then this guy on TikTok, but I look more at like the personality. And then I found one. So I have a guy for Aiden. And then recently I found one for Max as well, who is Aiden's best friend in the book. And so I look more at like personalities. But I like to pick like not celebrities. Like too many people picked Chris Hemsworth as Jax. And I'm like, that does seem similar to me, but I like picking like more obscure people. And TikTok will just blow shit up. TikTok is honestly the biggest marketing tool by far for indie authors. Like it's absolutely insane. So it escalated.
I do know that sometimes you write in the gym that's near you, like the MMA gym that you go to. I think you mentioned this once or twice, but don't you have like an Aiden that goes to the gym?
So I own a gym. So sometimes I will pull all-nighters and I will write at the gym, and occasionally I'll take videos of my fighters. And I have a guy who looks like Aiden. Like he has serious like golden retriever energy and just so playful. He's a charmer. He looks exactly like him. So but it's like very weird. Like none of them know that I write. Like, I don't really need any of them to know that I write about romance. It's just a weird thing. Like, I feel like it's as a gym owner, because I'm their coach. You know what I mean? So the last thing they need is to think that I'm sexualizing them. You know what I mean? So it's rare that I post videos. Sometimes I just can't help myself, because I'm like, you're basically Aiden. I can't not, post a video of you. But yeah, the funniest thing is like they have no idea.
Oh my gosh.
But I do have an Aiden in the gym. He could be an affordable model. Yeah, if he wasn't getting married this fall, I might actually have the balls to ask him.
So wait, you own the gym and you coach them.
Yeah. You
work full time.
Yeah.
And you're writing.
That's why it takes me 6 months to put out a book. Yes.
Honestly, I'm actually surprised it only takes you 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like your whole process only takes you 6 months with all of the stuff that you have going on.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's fun though. I mean, I pull motivation and like inspiration from the gym. So it's like, I mean, my husband and I own the gym, so I'm not totally solo, but it helps that I work from home. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll spend my lunch break just writing out sex scenes and nobody knows, but
Do you think you'd ever write full time? Like if you could?
It's my dream. Honestly, there's a couple things I'm trying to make it happen this year. There's a couple things that, my husband and I have to figure out personally before we make that happen. Because he owns the gym, so he's an entrepreneur as well. So like I own all the benefits, all the health insurance, all everything.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger decision than if he, had a corporate job himself. But yeah, I would really like to do it. And the weirdest thing, so I had a really weird day at work last week, and I have a good job. I like my job. I don't hate my job. I make decent money at my job, but the books sell well enough now that I actually make more on the books than I do at my job. So I had this like really surreal day last week where I was like, why am I doing my day job?
Yeah.
This isn't like technically my day job is like my side job now. It's very weird. It's a good problem to have, but it just ends up being, like I said, with two like entrepreneurs in the family. It's a bigger decision, but I'm hoping to make that happen this year. I always joke that I would love to write about dicks full time. I'm sorry, I don't know how PG this podcast is, but
no, you're good. You're good. Okay. Let it all out. It's fine.
But yeah, that's the ultimate dream. I would love to do that. I like writing, so.
But as an author, like you have only been writing not even a year. And the fact that you're at that point now is so impressive.
It's very surreal. It's very surreal. It's honestly like because of people like you, like word of mouth is the single biggest thing that makes an indie author's career. It doesn't matter what I do on my Instagram. It doesn't matter what ads I pay for. It's you guys reading and sharing, and that's what it makes it. So, I can't thank you two enough, honestly.
If I find a book, I don't care if it's their first book or if it's just like a novella. If I love the book, I will scream about it. And since I've read both of those books, I think I read 5 Rounds the week before Two Fights came out. And I was so happy I didn't have to wait. But since I read those I think it was January, because Two Fights came out in January, right? The end of January.
Yeah.
And I have not shut up about them. So like literally anytime any of my friends were like, what should I read next? I was like, 5 Rounds. Start with 5 Rounds. Just read it. It's fine.
And I think my book club did it because you loved 5 Rounds.
Yeah.
Right? Like Lucy and I chose 5 Rounds because Tori wouldn't stop talking about it.
It's one of those things where I'm like sorry, but like not sorry, because I'm like I want people to read it to make sure like I'm not crazy, that I'm not the only one in the world that felt the way I did when I read both of those books, if that makes sense. Like I just discovered Credence by Penelope Douglas this year too, and I know that's an older book, and I have not shut up about it. Every video I do, I try putting Credence in it.
Some books get discovered like years later. So writing, that's the other weird thing about writing, is like you will only ever be more successful and make more money. Like it's never going to be less, because it's just people are going to find it. Think about Ice Planet Barbarians last year. You know what I mean? One TikTok went viral and all of a sudden that author is set for life, So I love readers in general, but the romance community specifically seems very, very unique to me. Because we love things, like there's not really that much hate. I know occasionally we have like drama here and there, and but for the most part it's just people screaming about books that they love and convincing their friends to read the books that they love. So I think it's like the greatest community to be in, because you're just talking about books that you want everybody else to read, So
do you how long have you been writing? Because I know you just published 5 Rounds last year, so you were probably writing it way before then. But have you like written anything or even thought about publishing before writing 5 Rounds?
I never thought about publishing before. I started writing 5 Rounds over Christmas the year before. So my intro to romance was very sudden. When COVID hit, I got on TikTok and somehow ended up on Book Talk in like October. And Den of Vipers was the first romance novel I ever read. That was the one that I got sucked into. And for whatever reason, I read that and I was like, I guess I'll read some of these other popular ones. I don't know. This was kind of fun to read. And so I think I read like 40 books in November. And then I got to like Christmas break and I was like, I think I want to write one. Like when I wrote 5 rounds, it was basically, I wanted to write a collection of tropes that I didn't see anywhere else. And part of it was fighting, right? But that was my goal with writing 5 rounds is I haven't found a book that contains everything that I wanted to contain. So I'm just going to write it. And then it took me 6 months to publish, but the only other writing that I've ever done, I mean, I feel like I've been writing my whole life. My dad's side of the family, they're all writers, so it kind of runs in the family. And I always joke that I wrote a PG version of 5 rounds when I was in high school. I was like 14, 15. I didn't even know what sex was yet. And I wrote like a PG novella of 5 rounds, and it was the same. It was like enemies to lovers. It was these 2 kids that hated each other in high school. There was no sex in it, but it was just like a very like young version, like young enemies to lovers type thing. And I'm still trying to, it's on like my dad's server somewhere. Like I'm dying to find the original document because it was 15 years ago that I wrote it. So the funny thing is like the blueprint for 5 rounds has been around for 15 years. Same, brown haired, blue eyed, enemies to lovers, there's a bar defensive scene or like someone, comes on to Remy and Tristan defends, like that was in the original as well. So it's just funny to think that there's like a YA blueprint for 5 rounds out there somewhere. But other than that, I don't think that was like I would like doodle here and there, but when I jumped in hard and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take it all the way through. I'm going to hire an editor and we're just going to hit publish on this document and see what happens.
You literally went like balls to the wall. You're like, if I'm going to do it, it's basically all in.
I mean, how else? Yeah, you can't do it any other way, but the funny thing is that's really what it feels like publishing a book on Amazon. It feels like you hit a button and hit publish. So the craziest part is like running into people or like even when I met you or met other readers at the in Nashville, was it Nashville? Mm-hmm. It was Nashville. Yeah. People are like, oh, I love your writing so much. And I'm like, really? I feel like I just like hit publish on a Word doc and that's like it. Like it's like a very surreal feeling to hear that so many people like enjoy reading what you wrote because it's a personal thing, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I like it.
I was fangirling so hard in Nashville. Like Oh, it was Jess. It was at the
Author Maps
Friday night. Yeah, that you couldn't make.
I missed because my flight got.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. But
were you at the convention the next day?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think we missed you because Tori had messaged you, but you had already left, I think.
Yeah.
Because I got there really late.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get to see you the next day, but
that's okay. Someone asked, what other series do you want to write? So I know MMA is like, you want to write it because it's write what you know. I know you said that a lot before. Is there anything other that you would want to write? I mean, obviously you have the novella, which is just like a contemporary type thing, which I really enjoyed. Don't get me wrong. It was great. But is there any? Yeah, it is different.
Yeah, the novellas were, and I want to do other like character novellas. Like anything else I write in that series is going to be, I've got a couple ideas, but they're basically my way of like branching out from the fight game series and trying other characters, trying other tropes. I like to leave novellas on, and even The Stranger in Seat 8B, I kind of left it on. If I wanted to write a sequel novel, if I really liked the characters and liked their personalities, I could always write a novel for them after the fact. So I've got a couple, I kind of consider them like random ideas for like the novella series that could potentially branch out. But the main thing that I'm like dying to write is before I got into romance for probably a solid decade, the thing that I would read was thrillers. So I love a good thriller, and I stand by thrillers are the hardest to write because you have to sprinkle enough teasing in there that the reader kind of guesses what's going on, but not really, not enough that it gives it away. So I am like fascinated by thrillers. So I have a duet in mind that is basically a romantic thriller or romantic suspense duet that would be just as spicy as you would expect from me, but including this, but it would be heavy on the plot. Because the thing with the fight game series is I focus so much on characters, it would just be a very different type of writing. So I would love to branch into like the romantic suspense type things. So I don't know when that's going to happen. Even just having so many visions for the fight game series, I have so many tropes and characters that I want to paint for that. But yeah, I think between that and the whole reason I started writing was my parents have a great love story, so they're like my Everest that I would always want to write. Their love story, unfortunately, they would be fade to black, so they wouldn't be my normal books. But those are like the two that I think of like outside of the fight game series, or outside of sports romance, I should say. But yeah, romantic suspense. A good romantic suspense is like my kryptonite.
Mm-hmm.
I don't read enough of them because I feel like I either know what's going to happen and I'm like, of course, I'm just waiting for the ending to come. Like I've already picked up on enough clues. So something that I want to read more of, but I just haven't found. Like thrillers are too much anxiety for me. Like it just makes me way too anxious to read them, but romantic suspense is a good in between. Speaking of, I know MMA and stuff like that, this is my personal question that I wanted to ask you. I know you've done, well, I know Aiden, Max, and then these two, Tristan and Jax, they're the male fighters. And Remy does, like, she uses it more of like exercise in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you ever write like a female fighter who's like competitively fighting and is like trying to do what Tristan does?
Yes. So Lucy, I would love to write an FF romance for her.
I was gonna ask that.
Yes. So I've got a good story in mind for her. So she is a fighter. And actually, when I wrote 5 rounds, I spent a good amount of time going back and forth trying to decide if I should make Remy a fighter or if I should just make her train MMA. Because personally, I fought for a very long time in my career, so it would have been very easy to make Remy a fighter. But I think a lot of people look at fighting, and even today I have people walk into the gym that think, oh, if I start training, I have to fight. So for me, making Remy like not a fighter was my way of painting MMA as, oh, it's not all about fighting. Like there's other benefits and there's other reasons why people do it. So I purposely made Remy not a fighter, but Lucy does fight, and Lucy will have her own book. I would love to write an FF. I feel like a lot of and there's not that many, and maybe I just haven't read enough, but I feel like they're almost always dark romance. So I would love to write like a nice, like new adult or like contemporary FF romance, and basically it doesn't have to be dark for it to be FF. And I know it's kind of a minority. I know MM is very, very popular, FF not so much. So Lucy will probably take me a little bit to kind of build up. But I've got a great story in mind for her. So she will absolutely be a fighter. She's going to be a badass bitch.
I'm so excited. Like I've said this multiple times. I said it to you in Nashville. I can eat up a fighter romance, because I'd say fighter because sometimes they do boxing and sometimes they do MMA, or sometimes it's just underground. But it's something for me because I've watched it for so long that when I like read your books, I was like, it's like I'm watching like in Vegas when they're, UFC, whatever, you know what I mean? And I was just like, this is my candy. I love it. Like everyone has their thing in romance, right? Like Jess, you're a runner.
Mm-hmm.
If you read a runner romance or like a track star or anything like that, that's like her candy. But MMA for me is just like, I worship the ground that those authors walk on. Like I bow down to you.
Oh, thank you. And I feel like there's a lot of MMA romance that focuses on like the underground side of things, which is still a total thing. But I think it's what people think of a lot of times when they think of MMA. So for 5 rounds, part of it is, oh, I want to write this book that has all the tropes that I really like. But the other half of it was, oh, I want to make people see what I see when I think of MMA as a sport. So it was actually interesting seeing the reviews for 5 rounds, because I didn't give Tristan his actual UFC fight, because for fighters, the victory is getting the call to get into the UFC, right? So it never even occurred to me to have like a whole fight. So Aiden's book is actually going to be like that. I'm going to have Aiden go pro in his book, so it'll be a lot more, I think, what people expect that I didn't really think of, where it will have training in it, because like 5 rounds is very heavy on the training, but there wasn't really any fighting, versus Aiden will have this big fight, and it'll be just as heavy on the MMA. And I like having each book focus on a different part of MMA. So like in 5 rounds, it was a lot of training and the benefits of training. Same thing with Remy. In 2 fights, we did some like self-defense stuff with, Haley and Jax. Aiden there's going to be the whole Rocky Balboa style fight, so each book kind of focuses on a different part of fighting, which the fighting parts make me so happy. Like it makes me happy that people get excited about reading about MMA, because it's not very known,
especially like before you get to UFC. A lot of people watch UFC, but they don't watch like all of the fights that happen before you go pro. Like obviously that stuff isn't always as televised, but at the same time it still happens. So yeah, I do love it. I remember like it's always me with like my husband and all of our guy friends. Well, before COVID, we used to go out and watch the fights every Saturday or whatever. And, sometimes they would bring along dates or girlfriends or whatever. And I remember this one girl, she looked at me when one of the fights started. And, like he got hit in the face. Of course, they bleed so much more than what it actually is. She was like, you really like to watch this? This is like so disgusting. Like they're just hitting each other. And I was like, you don't understand. It's like tactical take. It's MMA. It's a
beautiful.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's like something that like I've never had like female friends that enjoyed. I mean, obviously I have a lot of guy friends that do that. Yeah. But it's more of like having like a female understand when I realized that you actually fought, and I read the author's note at the end of 5 rounds and I was like, oh, this bitch gets it. I was like, she gets it. She's done it. She's been there, done that.
Yeah, we're getting more and more women, which just makes me so happy. And it's not just, I mean, there's a reason why I made Tristan's parents the way that they were in the book, where that's a real thing. I've heard direct quotes from Tristan's parents come out of parents' mouths in the gym. And it's just, barbaric and human cockfighting. And that's so not what it is anymore. So yeah, I really wanted to show that it was an art and a sport, and not just guys beating each other bloody in the cage.
Yeah.
So
one question that I always like to ask authors as well, but Lizelle asks, would you ever write a character either with a disability or I'll add like a chronic illness?
I would. I don't know what I would write. That's something that I would need to, like, for me, the thing that I always talk about, I write what I know. So that's why I write very heavy into MMA. So for me personally, I don't have a lot of experience with a disability or a chronic illness. So right now, where I am in my author career is I'm relying very, very heavily on personal experiences. Even 2 fights. 2 fights was like 98% of personal experience. So it's very easy for me to lean on that. So there are a lot of authors who do research, even if it's interviewing other people, or just not writing things that are necessarily in your life. And I find that to be incredibly impressive. And that's a little bit daunting to me. So I would absolutely love to write a character with a disability or even a chronic illness. I just don't know what that would be. And I almost feel like I need to kind of build up to it to make sure that I do it justice, So at some point, yes, I just don't know what I would write about right now. So definitely want to tackle some other characters, because I build so heavily on characters and character struggles that I feel like that would be it would make sense, to write a character with a disability. But like I said, I want to do it justice, or do them justice if I write them. So
yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve with when I read about a disability or chronic illness, is that sometimes you can tell that the author kind of just skimmed the surface of the research, if they don't have like personal experience with it. So I appreciate the honesty and the outright like, yes, but I want to make sure I do it right.
Yeah.
Someone said my daughter has autism and she's about to get into self-defense and MMA.
That's amazing. Am I allowed to ask how old your daughter is? Like, are we talking about, so we have a couple kids in our kids program with autism, and they're like my favorite students to work with, honestly.
It'll take her a second to respond. I'm pretty sure she
okay.
doesn't. Yeah, sharing that. I know for me, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you in Nashville, because I was just like talking about the books all the time, but I have rheumatoid arthritis. So it heavily impacts my joints. So I started, I think it was now like 6 years ago. It's when I lived in Florida. I got really big into, it was when like MMA gyms were becoming like the thing,
blow up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got really into exercising because it helps me and my body to stay active and stuff like that. And me and my husband, he actually lost a decent amount of weight just from, us watching YouTube videos. We didn't pay to go to an MMA gym, but just going like in our apartment gym, and doing that. So it was something that it's high impact, but you can do it not high impact. Like you don't have to have a bag or all of this. We actually have a punching bag in our basement, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, I can't do that part of it. He does most of that, but she said she'll be 13 in August. So
nice. Yeah, that's a perfect age. Sometimes we get kids that come in that are they're too young. They can't quite focus enough. But our kids program is honestly like my favorite people to work with. And in general, I like to think of our gym as kind of the unofficial slogan is we have ordinary people do extraordinary things. So some gyms focus very heavily on fighting. Some gyms have like a bunch of pro fighters, or focus very heavily on competition. Some gyms are very kids program heavy, versus we have kind of anyone and everyone does what they feel comfortable with. And so they're, kind of the levels of what people do and what people get out of it are very different for everyone. And that's one of my favorite things to kind of see as people go along. Some people come in wanting to learn, self-defense, and some people come in, they want to fight. And sometimes we have, 40-year-old housewives, and sometimes we have 20-year-old collegiate wrestlers that have been, wrestling for 10 years. And like the abilities are very different, but everyone gets the same love out of it. So that's always been kind of one of the coolest things to see for me, is why people come in and what they want to get out of it, and then loving it, so that's super cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Highly recommend MMA and everyone.
Do you think you'd write any other kind of sports romance, or just stick to MMA?
Never say never. But I don't have any in mind right now. The only other books that I like, or sports I could picture myself writing about, is actually before I got into fighting, I was actually very into horseback riding, and horseback riding is very expensive. And which is why I ended up stopping when I was like 13, 14, and then fell into fighting and just got completely addicted. So, if anything, it would probably be about, like a horse ranch or horseback riding, or and one of my favorite authors, I'm going to do a quick plug here, Elsie Silver. I don't know if you guys have read anything by her, but and if you like, Five Rounds it's a little bit different, but it's a sports romance, and her writing is incredible. So if you like 5 Rounds, I always recommend Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. It's an enemies to lovers, but with horseback riding, and her books are just they're my favorite. So if I wrote anything else, it would probably be that. But other than that, I would probably want to, if I branched out, I would want to branch out of sports in general, I think.
Okay.
But again, never say never. Who knows?
LC Silver just had a new release, I know. So I've seen a lot of people talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, she had I think Flawless came out last week.
Mhm.
She branched into, she went from horse ranch series to bull riding series. So it's just like a very cowboy-esque. I haven't read the new one, but her first series is like one of my all-time favorites.
That's funny. I know we've talked a lot about, obviously, MMA, 5 rounds to 2 fights, because those are like the full-length novels that everyone wants to like read, I guess. But I feel like there's like a little niche of novella lovers. Like we have some friends that just love novellas. So I'm very excited that you're doing both, that you still want to continue. I mean, using it as a writing exercise is still like, I mean, I'll eat up anything you write. But what was like an inspiration for that? Like the stranger in like sitting next to you on a plane.
So for me, the whole kind of inspiration for that, for the entire novella series, and if I have an idea for, I guess I can give a spoiler, for the next novella in the series, is the whole thing is going to be based on meet cutes, and I don't actually like that word, but that's basically what it was based on. So for me, I don't know why the flight one came up first in my brain, but for me, you know, when I think novellas, and there does seem to be a huge interest in novellas right now. So part of it was a writing exercise, part of it was a way to branch out and try, like, I can't do long-haired characters in fighting. It's just, it's very, very difficult to fight with long hair. So like, for me, I have a thing for men with long hair. So it was just a very easy way to like branch out outside of the fight game series. As well as it was also kind of a marketing tactic, because my goal was, well, people are, you know, they might be intimidated by a 400-page book, but maybe not so much by a 100-page book. So there was a lot of reasons for me that I wanted to do a novella in general. But when I thought about a novella, I'm very picky with my own novellas. So I think there's a formula for novellas, and especially in romance, you kind of want quick smut. But it still has to tell a story and not leave you wanting more, or maybe just a little bit wanting more, but also not feel like, you know, you kind of wasted an hour and a half. So for me, it was like a very delicate balance. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do quick smut, I'm thinking one night stand. So then I started thinking about, you know, the meet cutes that everyone kind of envisions meeting someone. And half of The Stranger in Seat 8B, I actually wrote while I was on a plane with a guy sitting next to me. So I kind of had this thought where I was like, if he looks over my shoulder, if he thinks I'm hot, it's either going to be a come on or he's going to think I'm a creep. There's no other alternative.
That's so funny.
So for whatever reason, I've flown a lot, so maybe that's why the first one that kind of came to me. But the second one is going to be, did you guys both read? Have you read the novella?
I'm halfway through.
Okay. So there's a scene later in the book where Annie's at a bar and there's a bartender scene. So the next novella is going to be a chick on a bad Tinder date, where the bad Tinder date leaves and she goes home with the bartender. So the bartender pickup is basically going to be the meet cute. For whatever reason, that's always kind of been, I guess, a fantasy of, you know, taking the bartender home. So I sat with my betas in a bar the one night and we threw around like 50 different meet cute ideas of like situations that you've been in where you've thought about, this would be a good place to like meet someone. You know what I mean? So, I mean, can I ask you guys what situations you would think of that would lead to, I guess technically it would be a one night stand, but
I would think like library, like in college, late night, you're studying, you're over it. I have read a novella that kind of starts like that. But that would be my like go-to, like my thing.
The library. So well too. Or like a vacation, not like you meet you know, on a resort. Like there's so many once you really start to think about it, and it kind of starts to spiral. So.
Right. That reminds me of Gianna Darling, The Affair, where she goes on vacation and she meets him on the beach. Ooh, I have a thing for motorcycles right now. So a guy on a bike, like just something happens and he like helps her out. I don't know.
I always think of the guy that like helps you get away from an ex or something, where it's like a in the moment, or it's like just pretend to be my boyfriend so that I don't have to talk to this creeper or talk to this ex or whatever it is. Yeah, once you start to spitball, it really kind of spirals.
That's like Jackson Haley on like a smaller, like shorter scale.
Kind of, yeah.
Someone asked, would you ever want to collab with an author?
Yeah, Elsie and I have talked a little bit about potentially doing one. I don't think I'm in a spot right now, just with my day job and everything, to actually commit to it. But we did throw an idea around between a like horseback riding and an MMA fighter, like an Olympic type thing, where you've got this situation, because her dad, I guess, works for the Olympics. So she's got like all this knowledge. So we sometimes we threw around the idea of like collabing on, well, she writes about horses and I write about fighters, and she could write the female jockey and, I would write the male fighter. So I don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition. Again, I don't think I'm really in a spot right now to do it, but she's probably the only one that I would do it with, partly because I'm very good friends with her, but we also have, I think, similar writing styles. So collabing is, I think, kind of daunting. Not just because your styles have to mesh a little bit, but also, because you have to get along, and writing is such a personal process to begin with. So I'm always impressed when authors collab. So
someone said single parents lead to very different meet cutes.
I think the one that I had on my list was the single mom. Ooh, the elevator one's a really good one. That's I'm getting distracted. But was it this? I think I would do really well with a single dad. I think I could paint a single dad really well. Single dad meets the teacher at a PTA conference. Or the elevator. There does seem to be a big like influx in elevator ones right now. So
Uber Eats delivery guy.
That one was not on my list. I'm gonna add it.
That's actually really funny. Well, we're coming up on about an hour. Not that like we have to get off or anything like that. But I always like to ask, well, I don't, because it's my first author interview, but I know a lot of my friends do when they do interviews, is do you have like your go-to authors or a book that you would recommend that you've read that you think more people should read, I guess you can say?
It's hard to narrow it down. I have 3 authors that I kind of recommend anything and everything from them. Gianna Darling, her writing style is one of my favorites. So Welcome to the Dark Side is one of my all-time favorite books. And then I'm a big Tessa Bailey fan as well. Her writing just meshes, I think, with me. I love her stuff so much. Her was it Hook, Line, and Sinker came out earlier this year, and then I just read My Killer Vacation. That was like my quick, once I finished the novella, that was like my prize read, because the thing is, like, I can't read as much anymore. That's the only thing that sucks about writing, is I can't read as much. So I'm a big whore for anything that Tessa Bailey writes, honestly. And then Sierra Simone is a favorite for me. I just discovered her novella series. I don't know if you guys know about it. She has, and I think they're like 150 pages, so I guess they're like a little bit longer novellas, but she's got a couple. She's got a plus size heroine, and then she's got a female cop heroine in another one, and then a professor and student novella. And her spice and her writing is just top notch. So I don't have specific books to recommend, but those are my top 3. I'll read anything they write, kind of thing. So yeah.
Those are all really good. I mean, we're both really big Gianna fans, so.
I'm obsessed with Gianna, yes.
Probably my favorite moment was in Nashville. I went up to, and I got Gianna's autograph. I gave her the book, and she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, are you working on anything? Are you publishing anything soon?" So she like knew who I was. And I was like, oh my God, I might pass out like right here. This might be the greatest moment of my life. She's amazing though. She's super cute.
Yeah, Nashville was the first time. Jess has been like a fan of hers for like years, so she's interacted with her online. So I got pictures of the first time that I got to meet in person and hug, and it was so cool. It was like some of my pictures I will like never delete off my phone. But also like I just did an author interview with her like a week or two before Nashville, and she actually remembered my name, like who I was when I went up to her, and I was like, is this real? Is this real life right now? I do know author signings are a really big thing. So you are going to a Polycon, but you're just going as like an attendee, right?
Yeah, it's actually shockingly hard to get a table as an author at any of them. So I do not have anything confirmed as an author. I am going to a Polycon. We do actually have it's not affiliated with the Polycon, but we're doing a meet and greet with QB Tyler, and I think there's a few other authors the Friday before a Polycon. So, and then I'll be at a Polycon itself too. I actually kind of like it because I can like wander around and like talk to people, and I'm not just sitting behind a desk. So it's still super fun, I think. So I'm going to a Polycon and Love Vegas in October. Yes, I'll be at that one as well. And then there's one in Philly in November, Indies Invade Philly, that I always try to go to. That one's the hardest to get into. So yeah, even the 2023 ones, they're like closing down. It's super hard to get into those. It's like I was very surprised. So I don't know when I'm going to do one of those, but all of a sudden it made sense why it took Lucia Franco 6 years. Nashville was her first one. That was the first convention that she ever did. Yeah, which is like crazy to think how like successful her books are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're hard to get into.
Do you have any planned for next year that you want to go to? Not maybe like you've applied, or I don't know how it works for authors, but like apply to, but ones that you just want to go to if you're not going to have a table, just go to as like an attendee?
I usually go to the ones that like if there's like a lot of I'll buy tickets on a whim. Like Nashville was on a whim for me too. But Nashville's kind of close. Like I live in Philly, so it was like an easy, $200 ticket to fly down. But so it kind of depends. The Philly one I will always go to. That's kind of the only one that's set in stone. And then other than that, I've applied to a couple, but again, they're hard to get into. So as far as what I'm going to as an attendee, I kind of play it by ear. So.
Well, let us know in the comments if you have any last minute questions before we go. But I just want to say thank you so much for saying yes and being my first author interview on my channel, because they're always like nerve-wracking to do. But
thanks for having me. This is super fun.
And thank you, Jess, for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And we will see you at a Polycon because both Tori and I are going. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know if we decided if we're going to do the Friday night thing, because they just have a lot of like different events happening.
Yeah.
So we haven't made the plans like set in stone yet, but I will definitely try at least say hi to you at one point.
Yeah, we'll plan on. I usually try to make a list of like people I know that are going on like the Saturday, and then try to meet up. So we'll try to meet up on Saturday.
Yeah, we're also going to Book Bonanza, which is in a week too. So
next week.
Yeah.
Texas? Where's
yes.
That? Yeah, that's one of the huge ones. I think they sold like 1,800 tickets or something like that.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. It's I'm a little nervous, but it'll be fun.
We'll have fun.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining. We'll go ahead and end it here. Thanks so much, Nikki, once again. Thank you, Jess, for joining me. Make sure you follow Nikki on Instagram. She posts a lot over there. And if you haven't read The Stranger in Seat 8B, definitely check it out. It's a really good novella. It just came out 2 days ago. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for joining.
Cool.